Major funding for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, this election cycle, there has been a lot, let me repeat, a lot of platitudes in politics about technology, about green energy, about the future of America and our economy. And now finally, at the end of a very long national election cycle, we can again begin to deal in reality and specifics, hard numbers, and real outcomes. Welcome once again to the longest running and the most widely watched source of Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William, and on this edition, as the political dust does settle, at least for now, we will discuss the regional current issues of the day, and later on, South Carolina-based 3D Systems CEO Abe Reichenau.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded October 26, 2012. On this week's program, Suzy Hragovsky for the Center for Economic Empowerment and Development, John Gessaman of Carolina's Gateway Partnership, and special guest Abe Reichenau, President and CEO of 3D Systems.
Hello, welcome again to our program. Happy weekend, John. Welcome back. Suzy, good to have you here.
Thank you.
You know, before we really get into the meat of what's going on here policy-wise, it's worth saying here, John, we are finally at the end of what has been a almost 2-year, and I seriously, I don't think I'm overstating this, a 2-year election cycle. You know, I believe, if not everyone, certainly virtually everyone is fatigued about election and politics. I got to think we're going to see our way clear here to get back to business. Is that overstating it?
I don't think it is. It seems like it's been a marathon and not a sprint. And I know our companies that are looking in the area, and I think this is true for my colleagues throughout the state, probably throughout the nation, the companies are kind of maybe holding a little bit back and waiting to see what happens for the dust to settle, and not so much that it matters which side of the aisle we end up on, but just let's get it over with.
Yeah, that there's finally a decision. Well, but you know, before you go, Suzy, you know, let's bring you into this because we know who the president is, and now is the next thing going to be, yeah, but Congress hasn't made a decision on the fiscal cliff, so I'm still going to hold off. Are you worried that that's going to happen?
I think so. I think that, you know, we have I deal with small businesses every day. You know, the smaller they are, the more that they come in and walk in my office. I had someone walk in my office last week that was a 15-year business who is afraid what's going to happen tomorrow and doesn't have the means to an end. So I think it's scary. I think everyone's a little scared, and I do see the same pullback that's happening with those small businesses.
Is that political uncertainty from regulation, too much regulation? Is it just because of all the political rhetoric that's flying around? Either one of you?
Rhetoric, I think. At this point, we're at the end of this marathon, and a lot gets said, and I think some of it's kind of frightening. So let's wait and see what really happens. So
on your perch in Nash and Edgecombe counties, John, you think, okay, we're past the election, now things are going to get, you know, we're going to see some traction. Do you believe that?
I am an optimist by nature, and in this profession you have to be, so yes, sir, yes.
Yeah. Suzy, what do you think? Not convinced?
I just think I think everyone's in a wait and hold pattern. I just think that there are some things that are going to keep happening no matter what. some businesses that are going to keep flowing no matter what. But I think that there are those in my area. There's those certain industry that people are very scared that they are pulling way back. They are making those provisions for, okay, if we have to close, this is what's going to happen.
And let me just clarify. In your area, Fayetteville and Cumberland County, in all things DOD related, it seems there's another $500 billion that is part of this fiscal cliff issue, and that is, if Congress doesn't act, then there's another half a trillion dollars that's going to be lopped off of the military spending budget in the United States. Is this, I mean, does this have people frozen with fear around the defense mechanism?
Yes, I think that there's a definite mentality, and it's not just those defense contractors. It's those subcontracting pieces that go along with that. The normal businessman also has those subcontracts to those larger contracts. So in our area, our local chamber has looked at, I mean, the effect there is almost going to be 40% of the businesses in our area are looking at a decrease in the income over the next year because of those cuts. And that's significant. And it's not just government contractors. Yeah. It's not somebody who's just producing the fatigues or the tags or whatever. It's the printing, the
support of the support companies.
Yeah, the support of that work. And what we forget is that military spending creates jobs. And those jobs that are created in your community allow people to spend money in your community. So when you see those things happen and those things decrease, especially with that government contracting, people go out to eat less. They stop shopping.
Right.
You know, those amenities, spending money on cars and loans and those kinds of things, all of those things decrease within your community. So I think people are bracing for it. I think people are that's why I think all of these debates and people are very angry and very scared. And so it's a very different climate than what I've ever seen.
Can I add one thing that strikes me too is that at this point in the cycle, we've been told Washington is very important, or Raleigh, you know, wherever our center of government and power is, and we kind of lose sight of the fact that some of these things are brought from the ground up, and I think that adds an element of uncertainty too, is that a lot of the solutions for wherever we are really start with us at a local level and percolate up rather than waiting for somebody to percolate them back down.
Well, John, are you talking about replacing the politicos that are in power, or what are you talking about?
No, sir. I'm really talking about the fact, for example, in our local economy, we have a new entrepreneurial group that's been started to try to build business from the ground up there. And I think at this point we've been heard about how important the policies are in Washington. Indeed they are. This makes a huge difference. But it's important to remember that we have some control over our own destinies too. And a lot of those things start at a local level.
Yeah. Sorry, I got so down in the weeds. And thinking about, especially in your area of dominant influence, John, which is Rocky Mount and Edgecombe and Nash counties, it's got 13% unemployment, which is one of the highest spots in the state combined, I'm assuming. And what kind of demoralizing effect has that had on the region, or is there something else going on there?
Well, certainly. So now there are areas with higher unemployment. They just don't happen to be in a metropolitan area.
Right.
So it's been a result of a lot of turnover from the tobacco and the textile area to now a technology era, and that's meant our industry base has just shifted entirely to where we are today from where we were 10 years ago. So it's been a struggle. I don't think people are demoralized, and I think that the other thing is that we do look to other places to help out, to Raleigh, help us out, Washington, help us out. But I think within an area like ourselves, we have a lot of things that are starting at the local level to help ourselves. And I think to the extent that our political leaders can help us help ourselves, that's where we need to be.
We've got about 30 seconds left. Is there a chance, Suzy, maybe Fayetteville's going to go through a renaissance here as they have to refocus from such a core military DOD type of, corpus of what's going on there to, now the rising of the sun, if you will, on fracking. North Carolina has made this legal now, where it goes and how we treat it. Is there a chance for energy development? And I'd say literally in about 30 seconds.
Yes. I know that that's probably the next biggest push that I've seen, and I know that from having different discussions with different companies that are out there pushing that. When I worked at the Partnership for Defense Innovation, while there we had several companies, small businesses come to us, that was the next big push for them that we saw cycle-wise is developing those alternative energy pieces. So I think I think sky's the limit there.
15 seconds, yes, no?
Some of the best economies nationally, and I've been talking to my fellows across the country, some of the best economies nationally that are growing are ones that are energy dependent in a way. So could it help local economies? Certainly.
Yeah, okay, guys, thank you. We're going to bring our guest on in just a moment and plenty to talk about there. If you have some comments or you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we'd like you to follow us on Twitter. Go to @CarolinaPolicy. That is @CarolinaPolicy on Twitter. And, of course, our website, CarolinaBusinessReview.com. One long phrase. Sorry we couldn't get any shorter than that. CarolinaBusinessReview.com. Next week on this program, Paula Harper Bethea. She's been here before. She's coming back. She is the CEO of the South Carolina Education Lottery. And there's a theme here. We were going to be focusing on education for a while. In a couple weeks, Dr. June Atkinson, North Carolina Superintendent of Education. And then in 3 weeks, Dr. Mick Zase. He is the South Carolina Superintendent of Education. He will be here as well. At first blush, and quite frankly, when our guest first appeared on this program a while ago, his company's core product, a 3D printer, seemed to be a bit more than a novelty. It was cool, it is innovative, and it has some pretty good prospects as a tech manufacturer. But now, with some serious implications and applications in healthcare, auto, defense, to mention just a couple, this not-so-startup anymore in the long run might surprise many. Joining us again is 3D Systems President and CEO Abe Reichenau. Abe, welcome back to the program.
It's good to be here.
You know, you're smiling a little bit easier than you were before. You've got, and I'm being a little facetious, Abe, but you've got this printer, and I'm going to, just make a quick synopsis of it. You have a printer that takes an image on a computer screen and makes it into a 3D product. Is that accurate?
Into a physical, functional object.
Besides being a novelty when you first designed it and burst on the scene, it seems you're getting some traction here.
We're getting some serious traction, and I believe personally that 3D printing is on the verge of changing everything as we know it in the next decade plus. It's going to change manufacturing, it's going to change education, it's going to change communication, it's going to change animation, and it's going to change substantially a variety of medical treatments for the better, whether it's dental restorations, hearing aids, prosthetics, orthopedics. 3D printing is going to bring quality and improved outcomes into everything that we experience and do, and it's really exciting.
So that's a broad statement. That's putting a pretty big flag in the ground. So give us an example. Maybe healthcare, maybe communications. I mean, how does it change everything?
Well, take for example something like a hand brace for carpal tunnel, and what would happen if you could scan your arm and get something that is very thin and durable, breathable and dishwashable, that will allow you to resume normal function and perhaps even make a fashion statement. How neat would that be? And that technology is technology that we're developing and we will commercialize probably in the second half of next year.
So have you signed up celebrities to start wearing your product somewhere along here?
That's in the plan. That's in the plan. But just think about it. 8-year-olds can begin to unleash their creativity and begin to get tomorrow's competitive skills today. I mean, we talk a lot about jobs disappearing and reshoring and things like that. How about giving kids tomorrow's competitive skills today? How about giving youngsters technology and innovation skills so that they can become tomorrow's garage entrepreneurs and give them access to technology that historically was only reserved for deep-pocketed companies? And that's what we're doing. That's at the heart of what I call democratizing creativity and relocalizing manufacturing, which is something that I think is happening, and it's something that we ought to, certainly here in the Carolinas, be at the forefront because we have deep heritage here in the Carolinas of manufacturing and technology. I mean, think about where textile machinery came from. Think about where all the tobacco processing came from. Think about aerospace and defense. We have a very rich heritage here of can-do, of entrepreneurship, and of heavy machinery, science, technology, engineering. What we need to realize is that we can actually do something with it, and that the largest company in 3D printing is headquartered right here.
John, I know you got something to get into here with.
It's fascinating, and we had a little opportunity to talk beforehand, and it just changes the nature of work. It changes for an area which has a lot of manufacturing, which we happen to, and not unlike some other areas. How does that impact the kind of workers that we need to be producing out of our schools? And I think that's something Abe has a lot of thoughts on, and I think it's incredibly important for everybody. What the kind of work you're doing now with the community college, and what happens to the workers? What kind of workers do we need in the future?
Well, we need a few things. We need skilled, hands-on technicians and engineers to help us expand our manufacturing and assembly. We just purchased more land here in Rock Hill. We're going to build next year a very big factory. It's all going to be about manufacturing more printers, and it's going to be about science, technology, and materials, because we're going to blend more of the print materials here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Then we need lots of engineering types. You know, we need to make science and technology cool, and we need to attract youngsters, because the future of manufacturing is going to be about artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, and sensing. And so we need to make it cool and exciting, because I'm constantly struggling to find mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, material science engineers, process engineers. We have a deficit. And so we need to produce more of those, and we need to learn how to do it in the same way that it's done in Silicon Valley or in Massachusetts. You know, when you drive on 101, there is no sign saying, "Welcome to Silicon Valley." It's a state of mind. And we need to believe that we can do things like this here, because we can provide some of the most exciting opportunities for young engineers in all 50 states.
Suzy?
This is where it's happening.
Don't you think that having industry like yours, though, will attract more of that here?
Yes.
So that, and that's why I like your product. We talked a little bit about it. But I think that even having that will attract that here through the college system, because if people know that they can get the jobs here, or they know that they have those jobs once they're here, then you're definitely going to start attracting that and having that in the school system.
Yes, but I think that we need to start much younger. Calvin Coolidge said when he was president that the business of America is business. I disagree. The business of America today is science and technology. Competitiveness, will come from our strength in science and technology. And we need to start with kids at the ages of 8-year-old, before the school system snuffs the creativity out of them. And we need to empower kids and their parents to begin to embrace these competitive skills and tools, because that's the future. The future is going to be about creating and making stuff. It's not going to be about services. It's going to be about tangible stuff. And there is a preponderance of evidence that manufacturing is going to come back. What are we going to do to prepare ourselves?
Well, here's the thing, and I want to ask you about this, because you just kind of laid it out for us, Abe. Advanced degrees in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math.
Critical.
We know that. But you also just put your finger on something that educators in K through 12 will say. And say, we struggle with keeping our graduations going in the right direction. Yeah. But not only that, but the kids that are graduating are still struggling with science. So how do you what would you say to educators in the K through 12 system? How do you reach into that system and say, here, as a business person, as 3D systems or anything, let us help you with X to make sure these kids are getting to the...
I'll tell you, of course, what I did this year. I signed up with the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, Scholastics. This is the 90th year that they're doing nationwide competitions for kids, and they discover Andy Warhol and recognize him when he was a young kid, and Robert Redford and others. We signed up with them to create a new category because I want to see art students and art teachers creating and making in 3D. I want to see writers expressing their heroes in 3D. I want to begin to show kids at young ages and their teachers and parents that 3D printing is an opportunity to tell a story, to communicate, to create, to innovate. It's not just for engineers. I want to gamify the experience because I think that kids learn better through gaming. And we're doing all of that on Cubify.com, and we're doing all of that with a new $1,300 printer for the home use and the school room. And I'm going and giving it to schools. We've just given a few printers to the Governor's School in Greenville, South Carolina. We want to find more schools to do it. We want to attract kids to experience it and to unleash their creativity and to begin to believe that they can become creators and entrepreneurs because that's what we need.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, I'm glad you brought this up because we had a STEM initiative, and now we're talking about a STEAM initiative, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. The ability to unleash creativity is fabulous with the technology that you have, and I mean, I think the effort is great. It's going to change what you need, but it's also going to change, I think, another level. It used to be tool and die makers were very rare. Tell me how that changes things from what your technology does.
Well, it's an excellent point because today the tool and die could be printed. And so the tool and die maker becomes, in essence, a designer that designs with CAD, with computer-aided design tools. You could scan now, you could capture an object with your cell phone, with your smartphone, and we have technology that would turn it into a fully meshed and printable or reverse engineered and modified item. And so we're investing not just in the printing, we're investing in the ecosystem and the tools that will democratize access through simplicity, intuitiveness, and functionality. And the challenge for us, and where you can help us, is how do we get the word out that this is happening? You know, I appear on many programs. I now teach at Singularity University. I'm doing my level best as a company that is exploding on the scene to educate and to induct. And we're also gifting a great deal to communities by way of giving kids 3D printers and design tools. We now have a new design tool that we sell for $49 that we happily give to schools for free. And it's all happening right here in the Carolinas. You know, we are the leading 3D printing company in the world. And it's all happening right here. How can you help us get the word out?
Well, we're supposed to ask you the questions, Abe. You can't answer us because we don't have the answers. Suzy, we have about 2 minutes.
I guess what I would really like to hone in on is my background is always entrepreneur and the incubators and that kind of thing. And how do you plan on reaching that segment right now? What is your effort to do that?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'll tell you factually that we have acquired and are incubating about 10 startup stage companies in our space. And it kind of came up on our earnings release yesterday that, you know, our earnings would have been as great as they are, would have been greater had we not carried all these extra expenses, which have no revenue. We need to figure out how to incubate other businesses that are based on our technology. And I've been looking at it for quite some time because I think that companies like us should participate in regional incubation efforts that could spin out lots of enterprises based on this future technology.
I wish we had more time to dig into this. Would you promise to come back less than 5 years from the last time you were here?
You got it.
Yeah, okay, we'd love to have you. Congratulations on good earnings, on great direction, and good technology. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you again. Suzy, welcome. I hope the DOD cuts aren't nearly what everyone thinks they are. You know, things never get as bad as we think they are. Just keep, anyway. Thank you. John, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You can follow us at Carolina Policy on Twitter or go to carolinabusinessreview.com. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Thank you for watching.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.